Good afternoon, good morning, and maybe even good evening wherever you are in the world, and welcome to today's Trailblazer webinar, The Loyalty Dilemma: Flexible Bookings versus Subscription. My name's Eloise Hanson. I'm the editor of Boutique Hotel News. We're an online B2B platform for boutique, lifestyle, and luxury hotels. A very brief overview of how this webinar is going to run. We're going to spend around 45 minutes in discussion with our trailblazers today, followed by around 15 minutes at the end for any questions. So guys, if you're tuning in today, if you do have any questions, please submit these using the Q&A function. And as a reminder, this webinar is being recorded and every registrant will receive a copy of that recording within 48 hours. So one of our sponsors today is Aperto Guest Technologies. They're a property automation company, and here is a short video about them.
The only thing better than knowing you're onto something good is knowing you're onto something better. Better insights into bookings and property details. Sustainable energy management that protects your bottom line and the environment. Simplified messaging between teams and guests. Content creation tools that grow and monetize your guest experience before and after they check in. And that feeling of, I've got this. Aperto Connect, your guest experience reimagined.
So I'm going to hand over to our trailblazers now to introduce themselves. Now, unfortunately, Richard could not make it today, and he does send his sincere apologies for not being able to join. However, in true trailblazer style, we thus continue. So I'm going to move from left to right on my screen, which means that I'm going to start with James. If I can come to you first, please.
Of course, thanks Eloise. Hi everyone, my name's James Bland, as you can probably see just there, and I head up hotels industry research for BVA BDRC, which is a consumer and market insights firm that since 2018 has been part of global consulting group BVA. My background in the sector now spans more than 2 decades and began with waiting tables and carrying bags in local pubs and hotels. In fact, the only tasks I've never performed in a hotel are making a bed and cooking a meal.
Thanks, James. And Tom, can I come to you next, please?
Sure. Hi, everybody. I'm Tom Magnuson. I'm the CEO and co-founder of Magnuson Hotels. We're coming up on 20 years old here pretty soon. Started right after, in the wake of 9/11 in the United States. We started representing independent hotels back in the early 2000s, probably one of the first companies, if not the first, to bring wide distribution to the independents who were not connected with the large distribution channels. Right now, we have about 65,000 hotels and 700 airlines on our global platform. That's a little bit about who we are. Thank you for having us here, Eloise.
You're very welcome. Thanks for all of you for joining us today. And Ali, I'm coming to you next, please.
Hi, everyone. Looking forward to the session. So yeah, my name is Ali Powell. I run my own company, a business growth company. I have 25 years experience working in commercial roles in predominantly the hospitality and leisure industry for the big international players like Hilton and Intercontinental Hotels Group and Whitbread and Premier Inn. Also worked with some leisure operators like Fitness First as their chief commercial officer. So I help companies drive strategic growth initiatives, and this topic is very passionate about retention, and I help a lot of people at the moment to develop and execute on their loyalty programs.
Thank you, Ali. And last but not least, Jeri.
Hi, everyone. I'm Jeri Salazar. I'm the Vice President of Loyalty for the Preferred Hotel Group and Preferred Hotels and Resorts. I look after the I Prefer Hotel Rewards loyalty program, which is the largest points-based program for independent hotels. We currently have over 650 hotels participating across 80 different countries. And I have been in the customer service and guest service space for the past 30 years. So really pretty much my entire life, every job I've had has been in customer service and learning about the customers and what keeps them coming back. So I'm delighted to be here today and share my experience with you. And thank you so much for having Preferred Hotels and Resorts on today, Eloise.
Thank you. Thank you all. So a second sponsor of today's webinar is Cvent. They are a hospitality technology company for meetings and events. And again, we have a very short video to play for you. So details of our sponsors and our trailblazers have been popped into the chat, and I urge you all to follow up and connect with them as you see fit. So if you haven't joined one of my webinars before, I always like to run through some context, and this is really to just shape our conversation today. And these are all headlines that either myself or my colleagues have run over the past year or so. And firstly, I'd like to highlight Expedia Group, which includes brands Expedia, Vrbo, Hotels.com, Travelocity, and Orbitz, who's just announced plans to unify and expand its loyalty program into one global platform. So this will effectively allow members to earn points and rewards across hotels, vacation rentals, cruises, car rentals, flights, and activities. And other booking platforms such as TripAdvisor has even rolled out a subscription service, and in recent weeks has made some changes to the model. The benefit to customers is now offered on a cashback basis, where I understand that the majority of the commission made on bookings is passed back to the customer when they arrive at the hotel or when they check in. And the customer can then build up a wallet of money to spend on future trips. And to highlight how some hotel groups are revamping their loyalty programs, we have Roquefort offering an activity-focused roster of rewards, and offers will be tailored toward specific properties, taking advantage of local culture and sites. And members will also have access to a part of their website where they can record their preferences and personal wishes. On the next slide, and sticking with hotels for the moment, Marriott, on the far left-hand side here, has launched a pilot offer whereby guest booking rentals on the group's Home and Villas platform can also experience amenities at nearby Marriott hotels. So it's similar to how Expedia is unifying its rewards program under one umbrella. It's an effort to solidify that brand loyalty. And if we're going to read between the lines here, it suggests that loyalty is very much being tested as we move through the recovery. Just before we get started onto our main conversation today, I would like to highlight one final story. The airline Ryanair has been accused of barring passengers who pursued refunds against them during the pandemic from taking new flights this year unless they return those refunds. So this is all just food for thought, and I think it will be interesting to see how that particular story unfolds. So let's talk about the loyalty dilemma. And I'd like to begin with a question to Jeri, please. It's quite a big overview, general question here, but Jeri, what makes an effective loyalty program?
Well, I think we can see from all of the changes that you just reviewed that it's always evolving. There's always an opportunity to do something new and different. But whatever you do has to be constructed and based on customer insights and business insights. Because if it's not something that your customer wants and values, then it's not going to last very long. So part of the process is always listening to your customer, and I'll probably talk about that throughout, and every time I'm on screen, because the voice of the customer is so very important, and also the voice of the business that you're supporting. So for us at Preferred, we have 650 participating hotels, so I've got to make sure that what we are constructing and any changes that we're making work for them as well. But whatever that is, whatever the thing is that is based on insight, it's got to be frictionless. So if you can reduce friction for the customer, make it easy to use and make it easy to understand, that you're a long way there in being successful. Today with digital, with technology advancing so quickly, and all of the new digital opportunities, you mentioned AI on the last slide as well, that's part of frictionless. So you've got to keep up with all of those things too. But what I'm coming back to is easy to use, easy to understand, and often it's technology that will make your program easier to use. In terms of what's offered, recognition and rewards, if the program is part of a reward scheme, if there is something given back to the customer, which in many of the examples you just brought up, that they are reward schemes. So that recognition and reward should be personal, and include experiences that are unique to the brand and that are memorable. You want your effective loyalty programs are those programs that are memorable. We are in a business, we are in a space where the average customer is part of a dozen different rewards or loyalty programs, and they don't remember most of them. So you want your program to include personal experiences, something unique that connects them back to the brand that they'll remember. So the next time they're going to book a hotel, they have Preferred Hotels and Resorts, or whatever the brand is, top of mind. And then lastly, if it's a reward scheme, the rewards have to be attainable and usable. So something that a member can actually, again, going back to insight, something that they value, but something that isn't so far out of reach that they're never going to get there. So we look at divisibility of the rewards. Is it, does it take 50,000 points to get something, or can you get a little bit of something? Can you get somewhere with 5,000 points or 1,000 points? So always looking at those different options as well. So there's quite a lot to think about, but I always say you have to be memorable, and that's with independent hotels, and that's the space I'm in, and not one big flagship brand unifying every hotel. Being memorable is the number one thing for us, and really standing out to our members.
Thanks, Jeri. Mm-hmm. And I'd like to come to Ali next, please. Again, asking quite a big question here, but just how is loyalty being redefined by the pandemic? What's your take on that?
Yeah, thanks, Eloise. So yes, many big benefits to having a loyalty program, not to mention it dramatically increases your direct bookings, your profitability, your differentiation, et cetera, et cetera. In terms of the trends redefining it, so how do you be successful now with the changes in consumer behavior to set you up for success? I'd like to touch on 6 trends very quickly, which I would urge anyone to embrace if they're looking to develop or improve a loyalty program. The first would be around instant gratification. So can you make something here and now? Second would be about strategic partnerships. So outside of your property, who could you have in your ecosystem? The third would be about an emotional connection. This could be where 70% of loyalty is about how do you surprise and delight with the little things, the memorable things that, Jeri just spoke about. The fourth is about subscriptions and this paid for loyalty. I hope we come on to talk more about. The fifth is about personalized end-to-end experiences and rewards. So leveraging that data and insights to recognize and reward your customer on this holistic experience. And then the last one I would say is sort of make it easy, flexible, seamless, convenient.
Thank you, Ali. And I mean, this conversation is looking at flexible bookings versus subscription. And I'm not trying to put them head on head against each other, but I've seen quite a few subscription models and products being rolled out recently. And you do wonder how that is going to affect maybe a traditional points-based loyalty system or model, but also what role does flexible bookings play within the larger travel booking behavior? Speaking of behavior, I am now going to come to James as our consumer insights guy. James, what insights can you share on the major loyalty programs?
Well, I think first off, one of the things I'd just like to share is insights on consumer and general selection drivers, if you will. And what we're seeing is really the more things change, the more things stay the same. So if you ask consumers what it is that influences their decision, if you ask them outright, is it brand? Then they will turn around and they will say outright, no, it isn't. If you then go further and say, well, look, what is it? Then they'll probably, after value and location, rattle off a whole load of product features and service features. But do we think every time somebody looks for a room, they look at all of those things in detail and research them intricately and find out all the information? Or do we think they take mental shortcuts? And of course, what is the ultimate mental shortcut? Well, it would be a brand. So while they might say that brand is not a hugely important driver, actually the things they do go on to say are things that are very nicely summed up and packaged by a brand that let us get there quickly and let us make it easy. In terms of insights into loyalty programs, a long-ranging debate that we have in our office is whether loyalty is indeed the word. Are they not better off called frequency programs? Because if you do hold a membership to more than one program, which at the last time of calculating about 15% of British hotel travelers did have more than one membership, are you loyal? Can you be loyal to everybody, truly? And if loyalty is defined as choosing one above all others and being prepared to pay more, is a loyalty program that actually drives guests who pay less loyalty, or is it frequency? Or is it all just considered as part of the bundle of benefits that you get for membership and for subscription? So there's an awful lot at play. This point about brand and the relative importance of it, it hasn't really changed as a result of the pandemic, but I can't remember it having changed in a long, long time. What we are seeing is quite new is safety and hygiene have moved a little further up the next list of priorities, albeit less so for Brits and Americans than for other nations. So for Italian and Chinese leisure travelers, it's the second most important thing after value for money. For Brits and Americans, it's 8th and 6th. It's almost like those two nations seem to have a more relaxed attitude to COVID than others that we've seen. So there's a whole lot at play, but fundamentally, it's similar drivers.
Do you have any insights in terms of what's changed in terms of value and what's influencing those booking decisions?
Oh, value is the million-dollar question. Of course, there are movements I think that we're seeing in terms of people putting a value on flexibility and the ability to cancel. I think that there are people perhaps who've had fingers burnt trying to rearrange or change bookings that were made through third parties at the very start. But then I think the third parties will move to address that pretty quickly if they think that it's costing them business. So it is an ever moving feast. It's never really going to stay the same. And I'm sure that my fellow panelists will agree with that point.
And Tom, I'd like to bring you in on what James has just been saying in terms of things around travel behaviour and what they value and what they're seeking for, and especially priorities. Does this tally with what you're seeing across your portfolio?
I guess the one thing I can say that we're seeing across our portfolio, and it's global, is that it's almost like everything that we've known is broken. A lot of things have been thrown upside down, and it wasn't just the pandemic. Pandemic is an event that accelerated a lot of change, certainly, but there's been so much going on. I think one of the biggest things in the sphere of loyalty that we're seeing right now, as far as the change, is we all of us in the hotel business really look at a lot of the definition of the loyalty programs as coming from the great parents of the industry, the Marriotts and the Hiltons. Points-driven programs by the business traveler. And now no one knows exactly where business travel is going to go, but I love how you referenced the news, Eloise. Bloomberg just came out with a study that 84% of the top 500 global companies are all going to cut travel significantly. Now, I go and take my own survey and I talk anecdotally, and I talk to global partners at Deloitte who are told, well, next year at most, you'll travel half of what you did last year. As friends of mine in the US at Apple or Microsoft, they're being begged to come back to work 3 days a week. So they'll negotiate and maybe they'll come back at 1.5 or 2. And so we can only guess that that's going to have a knock on business travel. So my point is that the pillars of the loyalty programs are definitely going to change. Those are the drivers that are driven by business. Who are the new travelers going to be? You know, well, it's too soon to say, but there's a lot more leisure travelers who are taking mix of business and leisure, who may stay in something more unique and personal, such as one of Jeri's lovely properties, rather than a city center Marriott. They might mix that up. So there's just really a lot of change going on there. On a larger scale, when I mentioned at the outset that it didn't just happen with pandemic, as far as the change in loyalty, we've been involved in distribution and technology really since the early 1990s with the first browsers. And the one thing that I've seen in the 90s, the 2000, the 2010s, and even now, is the greater the adoption rate of technology, the more that it becomes ubiquitous and every day like running water for all of us. People are making their own choices based upon data selection. And, you know, we're not following the same, mindset that was led by only the BBC here, or 3 channels in the US and a handful of mass brands, where you were kind of told, this is what you should have. We're seeing the brand disintegration, or the power of central brands, greatly decrease all continuously over time, because people make choices on their own. Some of the criteria that James talked about, and you mentioned, James, you don't know if people tick off every 4 or 5 or 6 of those every time they make a booking, but I think it's all getting wrapped up, that when we're looking for a place it all happens so fast that we're almost looking for that location, price, quality, review rating within 30 seconds. So all this stacks up with what we're seeing. The one thing I would conclude this statement with is that we do see where the loyalty is going to go, and that's going to go to the companies that have the simplest booking platforms. You talked about Expedia. Well, they're really good at what they do and pulling it all together. I'm a big fan of booking.com. I love booking.com. I'm very, very loyal to it, just about wherever I go, because it's just so simple and it's so straightforward. And I think as we all are so starved for time and so pressured, we're going to look for what gets the job done fastest in the most transparent way. So that's a little bit of what I'm seeing.
I think booking.com has also expanded its rewards system to other affiliates, if I'm not correct. So I think they must have done this first, and then Expedia and all the others are now following. So it does raise the question as to, yeah, where is loyalty heading? What are those programs that are now being introduced? What are they going to look like? And whilst I'm with you, Tom, you talked about, I know James has also talked about the brand, and I guess the value of brands, and particularly new brands as they come to market. And I want to ask Tom whether you think that we could be at risk of what I call cannibalizing repeat bookings with the introduction of new brands into the market.
It just doesn't stop, does it? It just doesn't stop. And I think that because everyone, I think that sometimes I think that because people can make so many choices based upon personalization, it's going to be brands of one. I mean, it's so decentralizing from a handful of OTAs and huge brands to so many choices. And then it gets even more decentralized, if you will, with just the magnificent growth of Airbnb and the power of the independent and the power of giving people what they want, where they want, when they want it, how they want it, at what price. And so, yeah, the person who says, I have a brand or I have a chain, whoever you are, you've got to run hard and run fast and stay close to people and give people what you want to overcome the competition. And I don't think the competition is going to be won by a brand. It just, a lot of us, we're all hoteliers. It just goes back to the fundamentals. Just do your job at the hotel level with cleanliness, service, greet people 2 times by their name, don't gouge people like Ryanair just did, just be nice to people, and it'll take care of the competition.
Thanks, Tom. And almost following on from that, Ali, where are the opportunities then to drive that repeat business and improve lifetime loyalty?
Yeah, so that is absolutely the right word, lifetime value. When I worked in gyms, that was our #1 metric, is customer lifetime value. This sort of just continuous, how long can I have a relationship with you? For us, it was like, how do you get someone from 18 months gym membership to 22 months? And I would love to see, like say, hotels just much more focusing on the forever, rather than just transaction, thank you, and not be pushing for the repeat. So yeah, I think there's a lot of opportunities. If you asked all the people on this phone and others, what is your repeat business percentage? It unfortunately might be quite low. So what are there's simple tricks you could do tomorrow, and then there's sort of longer things you could do to drive that more regular engagement. So for instance, simple things would be, for every customer that has stayed, do you have some form of email going out to them, like a drive back return campaign to say, thank you very much for staying, just brilliant to have you, and whatever, here is a gentle, subtle nudge to come again. It could be related to something personal that they've experienced. That is a very simple way of getting loyalty. Another way is, as we look at the pre, during, and the after, is what are you doing before they arrive to try to engage and make it personal again? Is there things that you could offer that is based on knowing their previous behavior? If it's me, I do a lot in the spa, for instance, so actually coming out with some offers for spa experience while I'm there would be a brilliant value add for me. So it'd be customer satisfaction, but also it'd be commercially excellent to find those opportunities to upsell or cross-sell.
Anecdotally, I've had a recent experience, albeit not related to hotels at all. I went to an experiential cocktail day with a group of friends. It was absolutely fantastic in Brighton, and one of their post-stay email campaigns was say, did you realize that we've got one in London, but a whole new different experience with a theatrical sort of Wild West drama? And I thought, hey, yeah, I didn't realize this. I'm totally booking, and not just me, I'll probably bring 5 more of my friends along too. So
absolutely,
when you
that's
brought
the
that
network effect. But yeah, like I said, I'm just delighted if any hotel group does that, to cross refer to the other properties. Like you say, that's brilliant. You each stand for your own unique experience, and you're keeping the business within the portfolio. It's a great example.
And Ali, how can technology help to engender that guest loyalty?
Yeah, I mean, I think one's technology stack is to be embraced, and celebrated as an enabler. There are low cost, more simple technology that can be rolled out, and there's more full-on sophisticated integrations with CRM. So I think it's not something to be daunted about. There are, like I say, simply tomorrow you could easily get set up with a plug and play, or I think in America they call it turnkey provider, you mentioned someone like a Lassie is on the phone, or the Inspire Rewards, or the loyalty company. There's many that is just ta-da, here it is, and for only a few £1,000s a year. And then you get bigger integrations where you've got the likes of a CRM, where you've got this single customer 360 view integrating with a booking engine, and that's driving sort of more ultimate experience with all sorts of additional sexy functions you can do with pricing. So yeah, I think it's just what is the right scale for you. You can always evolve.
I've asked the question before whether technology can instill trust, and I know, Tom, you were highlighting earlier that the adoption of technology has been vast. I think a McKinsey & Company recent report has said that on average there's been a 7-year increase in the rate at which businesses develop and adopt technical products and services. So it does raise the question of where we are heading, which hopefully this webinar is going to dive into and offer some guidance here. And I'd like to come to Jeri next, please, and ask, maybe looking now towards the changes that you've made within your loyalty program during the pandemic to meet the needs of travelers. How have you adopted and changed?
Well, one of the first things that we changed, and I'll just put this one out there right away because everybody did it within a month of the pandemic. Everybody that had points-based or some sort of currency was extended the life of those points or miles or whatever it was. But with us, we extended it because we knew that was very important to our customers, that we understand that they can't travel right now. They don't know what's going on, and they value what they've earned, and they want to make sure that it's going to be there for them to use when they're ready to go again. And we've actually done that 3 times now. And I've seen many announcements come through my inbox of, other programs that I'm involved with that have done the same. So we just check that off right away, that, look, we hear you, we understand. And when you're ready, what you've earned will still be there for you. So that was number 1. That was right out of the gate. The other thing, and I mentioned consumer insight and surveys and just listening to what our members had to say. We do an annual member satisfaction survey, and we do post-stay surveys for every member who stayed at one of our hotels. So in listening, and we also have a member services call center. So we get a lot of feedback from them. And as has already been sort of covered here, is the flexible policies. Our members wanted to know that we would understand if they needed to make a change. They weren't going to be hit with cancellation fees. We would help them with rebooking. So we worked with all of our I Prefer hotels to introduce a more flexible member rate with cancellation or change policies that were flexible through the day of arrival. Many of our hotels offered an additional discount to make that member rate even more valuable. But the number 1 thing on that rate was its flexibility. And what's interesting about it is that our members already, their cancellation rate is already less than that of non-members. But even with, full flexibility to cancel through day of, we didn't see any, for lack of a better word, like abuse of that. With the cancellation rate soaring, I think the cancellation rate is actually lower than it's ever been for members, because once they commit now, they're pretty sure they're going. So their plans aren't really changing. So we introduced, and it really it's part of the product now, as most of our hotels have flexible policies for our members. They expect that. The other thing that members expected, and this isn't really a policy change, but we've seen them looking for more direct lines of communication with hotels. So the direct bookings for our hotels have increased as well. And a lot of that has been on the member rate and with that flexibility. So speaking, earlier about safety and cleanliness, members had questions about that and wanted to talk directly to the hotels. So it's not really a policy change, but just sort of a preference change that we've seen. And then lastly, kind of going back to points and how points are used, we know that with members not sure if they're going to have a stay anytime in the next 6 to 12 months, that they're traveling a lot more now, but we've given them other ways to use their points that don't depend on an overnight stay. We have an auction opportunity or a bid or buy now opportunity with points, where you can get a dining experience or a spa experience or a product from one of our we call them I Prefer Loves partners. So we've got, to Ali's point, strategic partnerships with like-minded brands, right fit brands. So we've given them access to other things. And this is work in progress for us as we continue to expand this, but I've seen it across other brands as well, where you see, partnerships with Uber and with Grubhub and DoorDash, and ways to earn and use your points in those ways, because, people want to be able to do something with what they've earned. But, we've also seen companies sort of eliminate those other options and sort of drive members to hold their points to use towards a future stay and give those points back to hotels or back to air travel or whatever that is. So I've seen sort of a mixture of those things out there, but for our part at Preferred, we're giving our members more options, and it's been fun. It's been fun to pull different experiences together and look at new ways for them to use their points and what they've earned. Yeah, and while I'm on, I just wanted to touch on a couple of other things that James and Thomas had said about brands and frequency. So James, that keeps us up at night too. What is loyalty? It's really, is it rewards program? Is it frequency program? Because loyalty is really an emotional sort of connection. And if you're loyal to something, it goes beyond you know, am I getting $5 back on every purchase, right? And it sort of goes to what Thomas was saying about your experience and how memorable something is. And you know, are you treated well? Are you recognized? And you're going to be loyal to the things that make, you know, that deliver on those basic customer expectations of service. So, you know, we look at both sides of that, and are we providing something of value in terms of what is earned, and can what is earned be used for a variety of things that are unique and different and make that connection with the member, but at the same time, is the experience at the hotel strong enough and different enough for the member to want to come back? And the answer is yes. At Preferred Hotels and Resorts, we have a lot of really wonderful experiences, but we've got to check a lot of boxes. And we've got such a range of hotels that providing those experiences in different ways for members to use points has been, you know, sort of a really fun project for us this year.
And going from how you've just answered that question, I think I know what your answer is going to be to the next one that I'm going to ask, because we've had a question come through from Steve Risk, who's asked, what are your thoughts in answer to the very broad-based comments about points-based loyalty becoming redundant? And Jeri, if I may stick with you for this question, just to hear your thoughts.
So the question is, points-based loyalty becoming redundant with, or
what is becoming redundant, I believe, altogether. So what are your thoughts in answer to the idea that points-based loyalty programs perhaps no longer are relevant in our new post-pandemic travel, given by all the changes that we've discussed?
I think that earning something and getting something back on a honest day is something that members will always value. So if you're willing to provide that, if your business model and structure allows for it, that can always be an effective part of the equation. It is a way to keep the conversation going with the member, to remind them that they've earned something and they have something to use of value towards a future stay or towards a future experience. For us, it keeps the conversation going and gives us ways to remind them of what they can do next. Now, you could argue that you could do that through other means. You could, as you used in your the example that you shared about, you had a great experience at one place, can't wait to see you back. Maybe it's a discount, maybe it's some experiential incentive. But if you have, if someone has something in their wallet of worth and you can remind them that there's something that they can do with it the next time they stay with you, I think there's always value in that.
Mm-hmm. Thanks, Jeri. And I'd like to come to James, please, for my next question. We've touched a little on OTAs so far. And I think, James, you even highlighted that right at the beginning of the pandemic, when travel restrictions first came in place, there was a big fallout between hotels and third-party booking platforms and the consumers who were trying to get hold of some kind of refund. Fast forward 18 months, James, do consumers trust OTAs?
Yes, some do and some don't. People who've had a bad experience that's been unresolved clearly don't. But you know, if we look at as blunt a question as what is your preferred booking channel, we actually see for leisure trips slightly more prefer OTAs than prefer the direct channel. And I think Tom has summarised the reasons far better than I can. I would, if I may, I'm at risk of answering a different question. I'd like to just come back to some of the points that everybody's made, actually, and just wrap it up, because I think there's a danger on the horizon that we haven't yet discussed. And one of the ways to avoid that danger is through this emotional connection that Jeri's mentioned, that Ali mentioned right at the start of one of her megatrends, is that you know, build that connection. We look at the EPIC framework in a lot of the CX work we do, that leads to better experiences, but build that connection, make them want to stay back, because loyalty has to be a two-way street. If as a guest I am loyal to you, as a hotel, but you are not loyal to me, then the relationship's not going to last very long. And while flexible policies and cancellation have been great to reward that sort of loyalty that's already happened, I think that there is a bit of a risk, and there are others who think like this. If anybody's seen the recent presentation by Frank at Avio, there's the threat of book, and then if you find the rate cheaper later, cancel and rebook at that cheaper rate. Because if I do book early and I pay a higher price, how do I then feel if I see exactly the same room later on? If I've booked on a flexible rate and I can cancel and I can rebook, then you've lost some of my money, particularly if I then go to a third party and you're losing another percentage on the commission. The OTAs could well have an advantage here, because if they can automate that process and do it without you even noticing, the hotels aren't going to do it. They're not going to provide the technology to check the rate and cancel and rebook automatically if it's cheaper. But if the OTAs do, that could be something that really could catch on. And it's quite a compelling message, isn't it? It's not just the best rate at the point you book, it's the best rate forever.
Very interesting. And I know you alluded to the fact there that you might be answering another question, but it's this idea of whether flexible cancellation policies, are they going to remain in place long term? I think many were, Tom, you mentioned Airbnb. I know they were very quick at the beginning to try and introduce some kind of flexible policy in place. So, James, are they going to remain in place long term?
Yes, because consumers will demand them.
They're demanding it, yeah.
Not offering them will miss out. It's like saying, COVID is going to be in place long term. We've got to learn to live with it. Flexible booking policies, okay, I'm not likening them to a killer pandemic, but in principle, it's similar. They're going to be around, and we're going to have to learn how to work with them and how to mitigate that risk. And that's going to be an emotionally led response, I think.
Mm-hmm. Can I come to Tom and hear his views on this, and whether, maybe use your experience of whether you're keeping flexible cancellation policies in place long term, but what are your thoughts?
Absolutely, we are. And it's just the right thing to do. I personally find it unconscionable that being treated right should be part of a loyalty program. People's plans change, and I think companies have to get with it, that people change, the demands on their lives change for many reasons other than choice. We've got parents, kids, jobs, friends. God, so many things are happening now in the supply chain, things such as in the US, I was there this summer. Every flight was delayed because of jet fuel shortages. And now we have all kinds of supply chain delays. There's so many factors that cause people's lives to change. So are we going to stay with flexible bookings? Absolutely. And we're also encouraging our hotels who are all independently owned and operated, to carefully consider, what their policies are, and that flexibility will just engender loyalty organically.
Mm-hmm.
Mm-hmm. Whilst I'm with you, Tom, I want to ask you a question about a Star Club, which I believe was introduced around the 2008, 2009, so the grip of the financial crisis. So in many ways, similar situation as to what we are experiencing now, in that there's people are seeking low rates, owners need to decrease costs, but they're also looking to increase revenue, especially at a time when the staffing is such a big issue at the moment. And so, Tom, how do you think membership models are going to evolve moving forwards?
I find that the membership model is very, very, very interesting. And I had a laugh recently. I saw, Citizen M's was perhaps too successful because it's sold out. All of their membership programs are sold out. I find the membership models very, very interesting. And, they're really not unlike a couple of things that maybe we've seen for years, such as Buyers Club, things like a Costco in the US, where, for £50 a year, you get discounts 24/7 on everything imaginable. We took a different tack with our company. We did launch Star Club in 2008, and I could either say it's taken us a while to get it right, or the world keeps changing. We just keep trying to either keep up with it or stay a little bit ahead of it. But where we are with our newest iteration, which we're just bringing out in the next month of Star Club, is an intersection to meet the needs of the franchised hotel owner and the consumer. And that is, we're not points-based. Star Club is simply a membership group at no cost that offers one thing, and that is you're going to get a rate that's lower than public rate anywhere you want, 365 days a year, no restrictions. I think we all know that if we're loyal to a store or an outlet, and we purchase a lot, well, it's just natural that we want to be recognized for that. So we're just offering a lower rate. There's no points, no restrictions whatsoever. Now, I stated that we also launched this as a solution for hotel owners. Right now, 30% of franchise revenues from the large publicly traded companies come from points-based programs that, in our opinion, have all been launched as a revenue machine, a Trojan horse to drive revenues that painted the OTAs as bad guys and said, franchisees, we get this great loyalty program that's called Book Direct, and you use this program, which is mandated, and we'll all drive loads of business to brand.com and not through the OTAs. Well, now you fast forward a few years and you add up all the costs, and a booking at that cost structure can now cost a franchised hotel owner up to 40% of the room rate, because you're going to stack a franchise rate plus a loyalty rate on top of perhaps an Expedia commission. And now you're talking 40%. So our Star Club doesn't cost anything to the hotel owner. It's just simply a rate plan. And we ask the hotel owner, let's just put in a rate that's a very meaningful discount, but it's less than you would pay a leading OTA. And that way, it doesn't cost the owner anything. It will be a higher value booking than through an OTA, and it won't involve any points or restrictions for the customer. Will it work long-term? I don't know. If it doesn't, we'll keep changing it. But that's what we've got so far today. To go back to your original point, I do like the membership programs. I find they're very intriguing because everyone is demanding or requiring personalization. I think that some of their biggest successes will be highly niche because they do speak so personally to people. And they have that modularity and that capability to really give certain types of users a very high value.
Thanks, Tom. I'd like to ask a final question today, please, to Ali. And she mentioned earlier that you want to talk about subscription models, and here we go, because I'd like to ask, how are subscription models influencing the value of points-based loyalty programs?
Yeah, so I think subscription models, many words you could use here, such as paid for loyalty memberships. Anyway, I think they're brilliant. I think they're much more than intriguing. I think they're wonderful, and we should embrace them because they are a win-win for the customer and commercially. So they provide great value on each side. So for the organization, who doesn't want recurring revenue? You know, that's just brilliant. Predictive cash flow with incredible data and insights on your most valuable, committed people who are going to pay for it and be your biggest advocates. You know, amazing. And there are, you know, certain operators now doing that, which I'm thrilled to see. I mean, I track and celebrate anyone offering a membership in our program, in our industry, such as, you know, you've obviously got the Soho House, but you've got Village Hotels doing something slick. You've got the Ned, the Newt, as others embracing it. You know, Intercon do ambassador program. So it's this idea of paid for value, and I think you can definitely have both. You can have a membership and a loyalty program. You know, I would just urge anyone to really look at what your customers want as a starting point. Again, you know, what do your customers want? Therefore, what is the value proposition? If it is a membership, how do you create something that is, you know, really just such a win-win experience for them to be part of this community of like-minded people with, you know, wonderful offers just for them, or digital content or offline experiences. I totally think it's here to stay.
I think maybe one takeaway from today's webinar is that data is very much going to be king in the new normal, the new different. I think Jeri mentioned it at the beginning, that if you don't know what your customer wants, if you don't know what they need, and you don't know where that value proposition is, then you are probably going to struggle. So I think there's going to be some exciting new developments and advancements to watch. I've just got a few slides to run through before we close off today. We are 1 week away from the Urban Living Festival. This has been our brewing idea since 2019. We've had to postpone it several times, and it's happening next week on the 26th and the 27th of October at Tobacco Dock in London. And currently, right now, we are offering a flash sale. We have 20% off ticket prices, and that ends today. The code is ULF20. And at the Urban Living Festival, I am hosting a session. That session is called Digital Transformation and Understanding Today's Guest, something that we have touched on today. So guys, please, would love to see you there. You can secure your tickets using the link booked into the chat. And you guys are probably going to get sick of seeing my face, because I'm hosting another session at the Hicks event. It's the Hotel Interiors and Experience event on November the 19th at London's BDC. And the session is called Truth, Trust and Loyalty, something again very relevant to today's topic, and further information has been popped into the chat for you. And if you'd like to hear further information about Urban Living Festival, about any of the webinars that we are hosting at Boutique Hotel News, please do get in touch with my colleague Katie. Her details are up on your screen, and her LinkedIn profile has also been popped into the chat. And that is it from us today. Thank you so much to our trailblazers for your insights and input, and thank you once again to our sponsors. We are going to leave the webinar open for an extra 2 minutes for those in the audience to follow up on any of the links that have been posted in the chat. Otherwise, I'm going to be back on October the 25th for the next Trailblazer webinar, and I'll be seeing you all at the Urban Living Festival on the 26th and 27th. But otherwise, take care and have a good day.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Yeah.